Okay, everyone. Today on our Epic Expert interview, we're excited to have with us Mitch Harwood of Durango Biofeedback. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
So let's start with, I think that quantum biofeedback is probably a modality that not a lot of people know about or understand. So why don't we start there with an explanation a little bit about what it is that quantum biofeedback is.
Okay, so if you've ever had a EKG or an EEG, even that little thing that they clip onto your finger to get your temperature at the doctor's office, all of that is biofeedback. And what that is it's the energy of your body going into a computer that is interpreted by your doctor. My machine also sends energy frequencies back. So, for instance, if you have something physically wrong with you, let's say you fell off your bike and you hurt your wrist. Now your wrist, it hurts, it's swollen, it's not happy. And that's because it's stressed out. And maybe if you were to visualize a sine wave, it's doing this. And I can send a frequency back to bring it back to homeostasis, to bring it back to its normal frequency. And when that happens, then the capillaries open up, the swelling goes down, the pain goes away, and your body, it allows your body to heal itself.
Can you dive in a little bit deeper into that? And how does it work, not just on the physical level, but mental, emotional, spiritual levels as well?
Okay, so it does work on the mental, emotional, and spiritual levels as well. Basically, it sets up a field. So when you're in my office, there is this quantum field that gets set up, and it's actually easier to work on the mental and spiritual levels with the device because the energies aren't solid. They're a little more etheric. So they react better and they react faster. So I can cleanse your aura. If there's something in your field that's not yours, we can get rid of it pretty quickly. Again, everything is vibration, everything is energy, and everything is vibration. So if we send out either a contrasting or harmonic vibration, then that will either bring you back into that place of homeostasis, or it'll basically kick out the energy.
I love it. It just highlights, as we move into the future, it highlights that more and more how we treat injuries and illnesses is going to be through some kind of vibrational basis. So can you talk a little bit in your article for Epic Magazine, you mentioned Bill Henderson and Bill Nelson, sorry.
That's
and
okay.
About how he developed the technology. So a little bit about that background, and then how you personally got introduced to the technology.
So Bill Nelson started working on this back in the late 80s. I think his son had autism and he was trying to help his son. And Bill Nelson he's a mad genius. And apparently NASA got wind of the technology and they wanted to be able to work on their astronauts in outer space. Have you ever heard of an astronaut being sick? I've never heard of an astronaut being sick. That's because they have biofeedback people in Houston that are working on the astronauts in outer space on a daily basis. The most common industry on the space station is a concussion. They're floating through space, they hit the wall too fast. Ouch. So the technology works through the quantum field, and the quantum field as described in Limit Target's book, is basically the space between spaces. It's the space between molecules, the space between electrons and neutrons. It permeates every living and every solid thing. Tesla talked about it as a potential energy that could be used, which we've not quite figured out how to tap into. But just like radio frequencies, we can use it that way. And we can send frequencies through the quantum field. And in the quantum field, there's actually no time or space. So I can work on people remotely. I've helped a lot of my friends back in Denver from Durango. Once we find out exactly where you are and get your biosignature, then you're the antenna. And I just send frequencies to you. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. And then also the piece about how you got introduced to the technology. How did it come into your life?
I already knew about the technology. It's been around about over 20 years. And I know a woman here in town at the Assertive Wellness Center who used the technology mostly as a diagnostics tool. So because it does recommend certain homeopathics and herbs that can also help you, which I often do in my practice as well. I'll recommend some certain therapy if something comes up. So I already knew about it, but then when COVID happened and I moved back, it was recommended that I see a woman in town here. And as soon as I walked in the office, I was like, oh, I know what that machine is. And then I asked her to teach me how to use it. And she teaches all over the country. But because of COVID, she reopened her practice and I got one-on-one, where usually I would have to have been in a big classroom to get this information. So I had one-on-one teaching for probably about 4 months every week. So that brought me, it was the fast track. It was really the fast track. And I took to it. I got it. I understand the technology really, really well.
Well, no better time than during the time of COVID.
That's
well,
the time,
it was that
that's
summer.
the times we're in.
It was that first summer, you know, from May through the end of September. I mean, what else am I going to do? Let's go learn some new, amazing healing technology.
As you said, we're all kind of being pushed to fast track what our potential is and what our gifts and services are to share with the world. So kudos that you moved into a new frequency.
Well,
go ahead.
Most people know me as a magician, and now I just have a new magic box.
Perfect. No longer rabbits, but frequencies.
Exactly.
Well, and it's fascinating that, I mean, you don't hear about the astronauts. Like you don't hear that kind of technology is being used. And
the interesting thing about it, NASA wanted it as their proprietary technology. And so Bill Nelson moved to Europe and put it out.
Let me out of here. Let me out of here.
And, but I do understand it's getting used in hospitals now. And, there's word within the biofeedback community that certain insurance agencies are starting to look into this as that we might cover this. So it's finally, after 20 years, it is gaining traction into the mainstream.
And after mega years of, Edgar Casey predicting that sound will be the doctor and the healer of the future. I mean, that's basically what this is vibrational frequency. It's sound waves, it's frequencies, it's all of these subtle energies that exist within us and within the entire universe that we aren't always aware of. So it's fantastic to have these modalities that people can be aligned with who and what they truly are. Can you, I did some, and it wasn't quantum biofeedback, it was just biofeedback eons ago, just you were actually watching it on the screen, and you would see it, and it would kind of retrain your nervous system and your brain and those kinds of things. The
Right.
interesting part is, since there's no time and space, there still was a frequency that was coming into my field that I could utilize to calm myself. Can you talk a little bit about maybe the difference between what a biofeedback and a quantum biofeedback is, and what are people's experience like when they come in for a session with you? What happens? Do they get hooked up to things, and what do they feel, and what have they experienced?
Okay, that was several
Long
questions.
question. Difference
That
between the
was several questions.
traditional, difference between the traditional.
So the old biofeedback that they used to do in the 80s and 90s was training your brain to relax. And they had several games, maybe with a ball or a spinning wheel, that you try to get to slow down or maybe move in another direction by using your brain waves. And when your brain waves calm down to a certain frequency, then you could see the wheel turn on your screen. And that is biofeedback. That is, but again, that's more your brain going outwards, your energy frequency moving out into the computer, which then interprets it and then gives you a visual of what is happening. So the quantum biofeedback machine itself is fairly small and fairly simple. I just so happen to have one right here. This is the machine that I use. It's an older model. They've got some new ones that are quite a bit sleeker and fancier, but I use this one because it's the workhorse. It's like having that old truck with the straight 12 in it that's just got so much power and so much torque and never dies. That's this baby. So that's what I use. What happens is you get a strap that is put around your head like this. And this is pretty much where the frequencies come in. Then I have straps that go around your wrists. These are magnetic, and it's attached to a wire. And what these do is they go around your wrists and your ankles, and they measure epidermal response, which are subtle changes in the skin temperature and moisture, sweat. And these are then interpreted by the machine and the computer. I mean, it's a small box, but there's some heavy technology in there that I can't even begin to understand. But they do interpret the changes in your skin temperature and moisture in very subtle ways. And it's very non-invasive. People, so everything, it's also based on the idea, like I said, when you hurt your wrist, everything is stress. Everything is stress. So if I can relax your body, if I can relax your auric field, if I can relax your brain and the way you're thinking, if I can relax that wrist that got hurt or some internal organ, then everything starts to function better. It's like if you have a crimp in your hose, trying to water your yard, you got a crimp in your hose, the water is trying to get through, but it's not really coming out the other end. It's just maybe dribbling out just a little bit. But if I can release that kink in the hose, then everything starts to flow. So when people come in, I've got a beautiful, comfy lounge chair in my office, and I hook you up, and sometimes I play relaxing music. And people find it very relaxing. We're de-stressing your body, mind, and auric field. And when that happens, you know, things start to flow better. So people find the experience very relaxing. So depending on how sensitive you are as a person, depends if you feel it or not. I have one client, they're always like, I always know when it's working because my fingers and toes start tingling. They're always like, oh yeah, this is working now. I can feel it. I personally, and I work on myself all the time, I feel it like a wave. Like I feel like waves of energy going in and out. That's how I feel it. Other people feel nothing at all. And they're like, I don't know what happened. And then they wake up the next morning and they're like, oh, I don't know what happened, but I feel great today.
So people may or may not have like a conscious awareness. In other words, what are some of the things that people would seek out the quantum biofeedback for? Because, you know, I'm like you talked about an injured wrist, and I might come for an injured wrist, but then I might find out that I'm not consciously aware that I have something going on in, you know, the mental, emotional, or spiritual bodies.
Sure. So I've dealt with a lot of different clients. I have a client with fibromyalgia. I've had a couple of clients with traumatic head injuries. You know, and that's very much brain oriented. Actually, both those are very much brain oriented. And then there's, I mean, almost anything. I've worked with addiction, people who have addictions. And that, again, that's sort of rewiring your neural pathways to ease that craving. And then we also do, you know, go into the psycho-spiritual aspect of what might need to shift and what caused the addiction in the first place. You know, there's always something, as you just alluded to, Lori, there's always something kind of underneath that's causing the problem to begin with.
Right.
And we've been talking about this as solution oriented, in the sense that if there's something going on in your life, you can come in and this can help you right the ship. But how about from a preventative perspective, and how people can utilize it even if they're feeling well right now? How do they utilize this to take themselves to the next level, or as a maintenance of health?
Well, sure. So we do a test. I calibrate to you, and then I do a test. The test takes about 4 minutes, and it asks your body over 11,000 questions in that period of time. And I get this huge readout, which I can then look in different categories. So, you know, sometimes people are worried about, I've had, my friends are like, you know, maybe I have COVID, and we hook them up and I can look at viruses, and I'm like, well, you have it or you don't. Of course, they go back and get a test to be sure, but I've been right a lot. So as a maintenance, I mean, that's what I do for myself. I'm a pretty healthy guy, but I'm always doing maintenance on myself, and, you know, checking my energy, and it'll tell me if something's coming up. Sometimes things are in our energetic field before they actually manifest in our body.
Always.
Yeah.
I've
Always.
Well, there was one time with my teacher, when I was with my teacher, and she said, oh, you've got a prostate thing. And I was like, I saw the doctor, I don't have that. And she's like, well, not yet, but we're just going to get rid of it now. And
Energetically.
energetically, but it was the strangest thing, because then a couple of days later, I felt something in that area kind of move. And then the next week when I came in, she's like, oh yeah, that's gone now.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the categories? Because it's interesting, you know, with other interviews that we've had with people, and even on our podcast, people talk about the microbiome and how we're actually more virus and bacterias than we are human cells. And the interesting thing, when you just said virus and bacteria, it's like, I think somebody coming to you wouldn't be thinking about that. They would be thinking about, I have a pain here, and it's because I hit it on the door, and how am I going to get this fixed? Or, so can you elaborate, like, out of those 11,000 questions, it's like, what categories do you look at? Is it individual organs? And
I look at organs, I look at emotions, I look at viruses, I look at parasites, I look at bacterias, I look at funguses. Those are a lot of the main categories. There's more, but that's my first go-to.
because every one of those has a different vibrational frequency, so this can be calibrated to tell what's happening from those frequencies.
Absolutely. And that's why I say it makes a great diagnostics tool. And often when people come to see me within the first few sessions, I will generally recommend a parasite cleanse.
Have you been out of the country? Have you?
It's not even that. It's just living in the world. Everybody has parasites, and they can cause a variety of issues, from migraines to stomach upsets to skin problems. And even depression can all be caused from a parasite. So if we clean those out, then we're already on the road to recovery. And then if I continue, when I continue to give subtle but powerful frequencies into your body, then it also helps maximize the herbs that you're taking. And we really get rid of them. And the interesting thing about the biofeedback machine, the biofeedback program, is it gives me hints, and it will tell me things. So for instance, I had one woman who had fibromyalgia, and we'd been working steadily on it. And then all of a sudden it showed me something about the cerebellum in that part of your brain, and it said, this needs balancing. And I'm not a brain surgeon, but I did it. And then I looked it up, and it's all about your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as we started de-stressing that part of her brain, then the pain really went away. Like, we were making steady progress, but she was like, after you did that, I was good for days. And so we call it trainings too. So it's just like if you go to the gym and you work out once, and you go, oh, well, that felt good. I can kind of feel my muscles. That was great. And then if you don't go back, then nothing happens. But if you continue with the training, then you have more energy. You start to, get a little more cut. You have more strength, these kind of things. So that's what the biofeedback does, is we keep sending those frequencies week after week, so that whatever your issue is, maybe let's say there's an organ problem, maybe it's your stomach or something, then it starts after several training sessions, it starts to behave on its own.
So people benefit most then from the sort of coming on a regular basis, because it's kind of like peeling away layers of an onion.
Exactly. And usually I recommend 5 to 10 sessions, depending on what your problem is and the severity of it. And then after that, people come in every 2 weeks or once a month, just kind of as a maintenance or as something comes up.
And people don't even have to have a quote unquote problem, right? I mean, because when we mentioned earlier that people might not have a conscious awareness. So you don't necessarily have to have some manifestation of a problem to come and benefit from the energies, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it'll, like I said in my little story, it picked up something before it even manifested.
Mm-hmm.
It's You know, what is so interesting about the biofeedback and this device is it's extraordinarily sensitive. And so it can pick up on things that, you know, unless you specifically asked a doctor, I need you to look for this in my blood test, they're not going to look for it. So, you know, I've done that too. And I never want you to stop your therapy, stop seeing your doctor, stop taking your medication. But there have been times when I've said, hey, you should go to your doctor and have them look at this because it's showing up in my machine. And of course, I'm going to work on it too, but it's always, it really pairs well with allopathy. And that's why hospitals are starting to use it, because they find it gives you a speedier recovery from whatever operation or thing that they're treating you on.
I mean, the
And then of
body
course,
is,
when you're
go
in
ahead.
the hospital, if something shows up, you can go, hey, my biofeedback machine showed me this. Maybe you guys want to do a little test. And oftentimes we find that we're right.
The body is so brilliant, and we have this innate energy that lives within us, and we're just
Well,
not always in connection with it. So it's fantastic to have a vehicle that can kind of put us back in touch with, oh yes, these subtle energies are happening on a regular basis, and if we're tuned into them more, we can really live at a more optimal level, body, mind, and
absolutely.
spirit.
So one of the things I do pretty standardly is clear people's auric field. And the aura, most people think of it as this energy that's, you know, maybe about as wide as your arms. But there's subtler frequencies that go out to 10 levels. And I can clear all that. And it's so funny because when I standardly do that for people, because people just living in the world, we pick up other people's stuff. And sometimes, and obviously people within our family, our friends, people we're close to, if somebody has an issue, you might take on a piece of that energy and now you're holding it for them. And then you don't feel good. Oh, I'm tired. I'm lethargic. I have brain fog. Well, that's because you're holding on to somebody else's stuff. So I can clear that pretty easily and quickly. And people walk out feeling lighter. They just somehow feel lighter. They stand up and they're like, I just feel clear. I feel light. And we can take that out. Yeah, it is amazing technology.
The right use of technology. one of the right uses of technology. There's several, but
Well, there are. And I don't know if you've, you know, I read this book about, it was called Tuning the Biosphere. And it's this lady who works with tuning forks to clear energy fields. And we actually have a woman in town here who does that. And I went to experience that with her, which was really quite amazing. And I feel like it's the same, like mine is the digital way and hers is the analog way of doing it, but we're both doing the same thing. And it's neat.
So you mentioned NASA working on astronauts, and you said that
Yes.
you've worked on friends in Denver. So for people who, you know, maybe they're not comfortable coming into the office, they can still benefit from this. So talk a little bit about how that works and how people could take advantage of that.
You know, it's just a phone call. And, you know, sometimes I take get a DNA sample. I have you send me like some hair or some fingernails. And on this machine, there's this pad on top. It's electromagnetic, and it will then read your DNA. And then I program where you are. And just like the way your cell phone finds you, this finds you. So cell phones use microwaves and radio waves, and we're using quantum field waves. But it's the same thing, just a different medium, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And during the height of COVID, there were I took some online classes, and we had a conference, and there was a guy from Portugal, and he's like, all I do is COVID patients, and no one comes into my office. And I've helped several people with COVID.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
From far away. That's one of my big success stories. I had a friend call me up, and she sounded like a man on the phone and said, Mitch, I have 103-degree fever, and I've had it for 3 days. And if you can't help me, I'm going to the hospital. And I broke her fever in 2 hours. And then we did another session the following day, and she went to work on Monday morning.
Great.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome that hospitals and other things are starting to incorporate this. I mean, that's what a hospital should be, is a place for like subtle energy realignment. And of course, I'm not downing out allopathic medicine, because obviously traumas need to take place. But when people are in the hospital and we're just giving them drugs versus working on the underlying energetics that have shifted them in a negative way, so that's why they're there, it'd be fantastic for, hospitals to have some of these tools that really work on the whole being and the energetics of the person to alleviate what's going on and speed up their recovery. So it's good news to hear that it's moving in that direction.
It really is. It's great. Yeah, and
So-
oftentimes, allopathy, they're just trying to get you out of pain. And often that's temporary and has other side effects. The biofeedback that I use has no side effects. I cannot harm you with it at all. The worst thing that could possibly happen is you get no relief. That would be the worst thing that could possibly happen, because if I'm giving too much frequencies or working on something too heavily, it literally pops up an alarm and says, enough therapy for now, enough of this, and then we'll move on to something else.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it is really neat. And part of it, I mean, there's lots of different vibrational therapies out there, like homeopathic medicine is all vibrational therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So you could take a homeopathic, or with my quantum biofeedback device, I can just give you the energetic for it. And it's just like taking the homeopathic.
It'd be so interesting to, be hooked up to the biofeedback machine and be offered different modalities, like to see somebody's baseline and then they get a massage, or they get a chiropractic adjustment, or they get a sound healing session, or whatever that is. And
Oh, well,
just to see the changes,
the-
because
this
you can
machine
feel
is
it, but
so
you
magical.
can't see it.
Lisa, I got to tell you, like, this machine is so magical. I had a friend of mine. She was in Denver, and so we were working remotely, and she was having some issues with her energy. And I looked and I said, do you see a chiropractor? I was working on her spine. And she goes, yes, I do. And I said, well, your C2 is out. And you need to go, because I can't fix that. And she went to the chiropractor, and sure enough, she called me up the next day. She goes, my C2 was out. And the spine is also like a hose. If you're kinked up, you're not getting energy flow.
Right. Stopping the nervous system.
Mm-hmm. And I did this from 300 miles away. It showed up.
Yeah, it's a fabulous diagnostic tool for sure. That's what you were talking about. And so, yeah, it's just such
And
a
it surprises me all the time. Like I'm like, really? I was right.
Well, we can see your enthusiasm for it. So maybe
Well,
maybe
it
talk a little
works.
bit. Yeah, well, talk a little bit about sort of like your life before this was in it and your life now that this is in it.
So when I first started seeing my teacher, this was at the beginning of COVID, and I had a career as a professional magician and public speaker, entertainer. And in a period of about 4 or 5 days, my whole career evaporated completely. And I left Denver and moved back out here. And I was not I was bummed. I mean, my life was gone. I was like, what am I going to do? And I was depressed, and I was having brain fog, and I was tired all the time. And after 2 or 3 sessions, I felt great. And that's when I was like, okay, I want to know how this works. I want to take the deep dive into this, because it worked, and it worked quickly and easily. And it keeps unfolding. It's a massive program, but it's very intuitive. And between the biofeedback device, my client, and myself, there's this sort of symbiotic relationship that happens, and healing happens.
you're in the field.
You're in the field. It definitely puts out an energy field of healing.
It's a beautiful place to be.
It really is.
Anytime. We're in the field right now. So
Of course we are.
yeah.
We're in the Epic magazine field.
Yeah. This has been awesome. It's like it's so interesting and cutting edge, even though you said it's been around for 20 years. I think now's the time for people to really start understanding about their alignment energetically, and understanding there's so many tools out there that can really help them on a daily basis, instead of waiting until something comes up where they have to go to their physician. So I'm glad that you're offering that for everyone.
Yeah, it's a great preventative. It's a great diagnostic. It really works. It's science fiction. It's magic, but it and and what was it? Somebody said any technology, any new technology at first is perceived as magic.
That's perfect for you. Another level of magic unfolding in your life. That's great.
It is, and that's why I'm into it.
Cool. It's like, now I'm a quantum field magician. This is
It
fantastic.
works.
That's cool. We love to ask everyone a couple interesting questions, and the one that I'm going to ask right now would be, if you could go back in time and offer your younger self some advice, what would it be?
Know that everything is always working out for you, even when it seems like it isn't.
It's great.
Yep, absolutely perfect.
A daily mantra.
All right. Everything is happening for me.
Always. Well, I mean, just even my story I told you, my whole life evaporated. And then this came in. And now things are loosening up and the magic is coming back too, which is wonderful. And I was just out in New York City visiting my daughter out there, and I was talking, we had a big dinner with my cousins, and we all talked about how COVID affected us. And gosh, I was riding my bike and taking my raft down the river and going hiking and learning about biofeedback, and I had like the best time.
I know I dropped like 20 pounds during that time frame because I was like, like, I've been overindulging and, stress and different things. And it was like, okay, here's the perfect time. I'm going to be in my house. I'm going to start working out every day. And, so yeah,
it turned into a great way for self-improvement.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people had some hard times.
Totally. We don't want to minimize that for sure, but
others of us, like I said, it looked like a window shut. Like my time in Denver was over. And for the moment, my career was over. A career that I've had for 45 years. I've never not done what I've done in the entertainment industry. And then to open myself up to something completely new and different. So I could have wallowed in my self-pity. And then this new door opened up. And that's the way life is. And when I look back on my life, that's the way life always is.
Retrospectively, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, in the moment, it's horrible. Oh my gosh. Just find me some sand for me to put my head in.
Yeah, and then when you go back, you're like, oh, magic, 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 synchronicity, magic, synchronicity.
I met this person. Oh yeah.
So we talked about giving your younger self advice. So now let's fast forward into the future. And what do you hope to see as your legacy? Like, what is it that is your gift or legacy to your family, your community, the world at large?
I think in some way I've always wanted to ease suffering. I grew up in the Northeast and I had great parents, but we yelled a lot. There's a lot of yelling happening in my house. And, because it was the times, and where we were. And so anytime things got tense, I was always trying to like crack a joke or ease the tension in some way. And I've always been like that. And even in my magic field, I wanted to make people laugh, and I wanted people to have fun, and I wanted people to see things in a different way, and show that there is something beyond our small selves. And now I've got the quantum biofeedback machine, which is literally easing suffering and helping people. And so it's almost like I've gone into a deeper level of what I've always done. Like the other one was like, well, you're going to forget your problems for an hour. But now this is something that can last. And so, I've been back a little more than a year now here in Durango, and I definitely want to be more part of the community and do more community things as our community opens up again. And, I'm working towards that goal. Because I can't save the world, but I can certainly save my little corner, help my little corner of it. I can't save the world. I'm not like, but
Each do our part.
My little corner. I'm happy with that.
I love that you said, for 45 years, you've had this profession of doing magic and trying to help ease suffering through that. So, when you think you for 45 years you've been putting that into the quantum field, that this is what I want to do. So of course this is the next iteration that would show up before you, right? Is like, okay, and let's do it on this level too. So congratulations, it's perfect.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
It feels very right.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you here with us today, Mitch. Can you let everyone know how they can connect with you, your website, how they can get a hold of you to come in and try some quantum biofeedback?
Sure. It's durangobiofeedback.com is the easiest way. You can email me at durangobiofeedback@gmail.com. And then of course I'm in the book. My phone number is 970-759-5015. You can call or text, whatever you prefer. And those are really the best ways to reach me. I'm also, I've got I do some advertising. I'm with you in E.P.I.C, and you can find me on
ConsciousLivingDirectory.com.
ConsciousLivingDirectory.com. Thank you. Durango 360, or is it 360 Durango?
I think it's 360 Durango.
I've got
And
a
you have a
list.
Facebook page as well?
I do have a Facebook page, Durango Biofeedback.
Yeah.
Check out that branding, consistent. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there's lots of ways to find me. And always offer a discount on your first session, because I don't want you to make a huge investment for something you don't know about. And then I have package discounts as well. And yeah.
Great. Thank you again so much for being with us today, and visit Mitch at durangobiofeedback.com. And for more information on E.P.I.C, go to epicconsciousliving.com. Thank you, Mitch.
Lisa,
Thank you for your
Lori,
time.
thank you so much.